Greetings and good evening. My name is Veronica Marie, and I'm here to begin the Deactivating Triggers teaching. This teaching happens in 3 parts every Sunday, beginning today for 3 Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm going to wait until everybody pops on and then we'll begin. It's a good idea to be in a quiet space if you're watching the replay. Have some water close by, something to write with, take notes if you need them. Other than that, we'll get started in a few minutes. If you are watching the replay, you can bring the recording forward about 3 minutes. That's when the teaching will start, 2 to 3 minutes in. All right, so we are right on the hour. I would like to welcome you to Deactivate Your Triggers educational series. The purpose of this course is to help you. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to help some people get in right quick. All right, so I will start all over again. Welcome to Deactivating Your Triggers educational series. The purpose of this teaching is to help you understand what triggers are and how to deactivate them so that you can reprogram your mind for experiences that you desire. So getting yourself settled in a quiet place would be a good idea. If you have something to write with, that's also a good idea so that you can take notes. Get yourself comfortable, and let's begin just with breathing in through the nostrils and out through the mouth. And we invite clarity, we invite truth. We invite our eyes to see and ears to hear ourselves, hearts to feel, minds to know. We invite our creative center on deck. And we say to our higher self, speak to us, for we are listening. If you agree with that in the spirit of your mind, we just say, it is so, and it is so. I would like to start a little different during these sessions by asking you to consider your personal triggers. Just think about what triggers you. What things really get under your skin? What things do you have difficulty moving through? What emotions, what situations, what people. Allow that to come to your mind. And here's the question: what do you need to know about triggers? As you get the answer, I invite you to state it here before we get started. What do you need to know about triggers? The floor is open. You have to unmute yourself if you want to participate. Another way of asking that question is, what do you wish you knew about triggers? What would make your life easier if you understood this about triggers? This is optional, but I just want to leave the opportunity there. All right. So during this first call, I would like to start off with some foundational concepts. And then during our next call, we'll move forward into the strategy and into some practice. One of the first things that you have to understand in every negatively triggering situation is that the presenting situation is not the problem. This is core. The thing that you're describing is not the real problem. I'll say it again. The thing that you're describing is not the real problem. And if you stay on the level of the problem, you will never resolve it. And if you never resolve the energies associated with the situation, you cannot deactivate a trigger. At best, you'll be using some coping strategies, some defense mechanism, which those are useful in the short term, but in the long term, they're like putting a Band-Aid over a gaping wound. It just won't work. It's not sufficient. Again, the presenting situation is not the real problem. If you stay on the level of the problem, you will never find resolution, because it's like looking for your car keys outside when they are actually inside the car. You're looking in the wrong place, you're applying the wrong strategy, and as a result, you are not getting the resolution that you need, and the trigger remains. Most people who do not understand triggers, they just hover around the problem, fussing about it, expounding upon it, venting about it. And there's nothing wrong with venting. We'll get into that in later sessions. But your awareness must expand. So I'd like to present two types of awareness. There is a contracted awareness and an expanded awareness. When you're in your contracted awareness, you're on the level of the problem. You're stressed. Your ability to see greatly suffers. Your ability to hear greatly suffers. Your ability to perceive is limited to what your programs will allow, your triggers. Okay, your triggers are also known as programs, according to how I teach. So you become greatly limited when you stay on the level of the problem. An example of this would be a person yells and screams at you. And so you are fussing that they raise their voice, that they always raise their voice, that you don't like it, you're not going to put up with it. You put up some boundaries to stop them from doing it. They say they're going to stop and then they do it again. This is a contracted awareness. It's a narrow focus and it doesn't allow you to work through anything. Then there's the expanded awareness. And expanded awareness is associated with your ability to live in harmony with universal truth. If we understand that this entire universe is energy, we are energy fields, right? It may feel like our bodies are solid, that walls are solid and floors are solid, but science tells us that the atoms that make up the molecules in what we call matter, they're energy fields, open space. Okay. And when collections of energy fields come together, they have certain qualities and certain properties. And our bodies are able to interact with the energies in a way that makes us feel and sense that the thing is solid or a liquid or a gas or whatever it is that we're calling it. But truth be told, we live in a continuum of energy, an energetic field. And each thing, each object, each species, each being has a certain vibration, a certain density. And so that makes it unique. But we're in a field of energy. And if we are in a field of energy and we are a field of energy, then the universe is an extension of who we are, what we are, rather. The universe is an extension. It's like the drop of water in the ocean. That's a good analogy. The drop of water is part of the ocean, right? We are part of the universe, a continuous part of the universe. The universe is expansive and continues to expand. When we're in an expanded state, we are in our universal self. We are vibrating in harmony with universal truth. And in the harmony of universal truth, there's clarity because all of the answers are there. Everything we need to know is there. Our unlimited potential is there. Our unlimited creativity is there. And anybody knows when we are in a situation where we need to problem solve, we need creativity. And if we have unlimited creativity, that is us, then it makes sense that living in a contracted awareness isn't really going to get us what we need. It isn't going to bring us into our highest state of being. The presenting situation is not the problem, and staying on the level of the problem keeps you in a contracted awareness. That means you're limited. You cannot resolve anything. You can't deactivate anything. But when you reside in an expanded awareness, you are consistent with universal truth. And in universal truth, that is where your unlimited potential lies. That's where you tap into your unlimited creativity. That's when you see things clearly. So the other thing we need to understand in the contracted awareness, there's what's called our animal brain. Our animal brain. It's the primal part of us. It's not a logical part of us. It's an autopilot program. It's an automatic program. When your brain perceives some type of danger, some type of stress, whatever it is, in the form of the presenting situation, your animal brain will activate. Your logic greatly decreases. Your ability to make good decisions and be creative in resolution greatly decreases, almost to nothing. You go into a flight or fight response. You can only incur more offense. You can only get more and more upset and either fold all the way inward or lash out or some combination of both. Just from explaining that right there, you can probably see how your triggers have activated in the past, even maybe up and right even now to this day. You've gotten upset about something, your animal brain activated because you perceived some threat, some danger, some insecure situation, and your program sent off a ripple effect within your being, right? So again, all of this is important because your primal brain causes you to contract away from your creativity, away from your potential, away from your ability to deactivate your triggers. Eckhart Tolle, talks about this phenomenon in a different way. He calls it your pain body. Your pain body is your contracted, activated triggers. Okay? Your triggers are activated. The energies are moving in your system in an active way. You sense it. Your primal brain is activated. You're stressed out, and your body is ready for flight or fight. This is where most people reside. And if you manage to get in your logical brain just a little bit, you still won't be able to deactivate the trigger because you're convinced that you have an enemy. You're convinced that the other person is against you. You're convinced that the other person is wrong or has wronged you in some way. Even if you get some of your logical mind back, the animal brain is not going to allow you to introspect. You're mostly going to look outside and locate a problem that needs to be fixed. It's part of our programming. It's a troubleshooting program. But if we are to heal and experience greater and greater ease in our lives, then we have to continue to train our being to move away from these programs into a more elevated state of being, where we're not blaming others, shaming others, controlling others, trying to change others, attempting to dominate others or get others to see a particular way. Okay. The presenting situation is not the problem. I can't say that enough. I keep stressing this in different ways. Eckhart Tolle says that the pain body, once it's activated, it has a force of its own, and it does, because it's the activation of all of the energies in your past that have experienced that thing before. And with the activation of your flight or fight response, the animal brain, the primal brain, the pain body will take over your logic. You can't see right. You can't see clearly. You can't hear clearly. You don't feel calm. If you've ever tried to talk to a person who is in a trigger with logic, it didn't work well, because the animal brain does not submit to logic. It will calm down when the threat seems to cease or at least lessen in intensity. You can remember times probably when you were highly upset and people tried to be logical with you. It was very difficult. You didn't want to hear it. The primal brain, the animal brain, is really not interested in logic. All right. So we want to do our best to remain in an expanded awareness. And so we do that, number one, by becoming aware that there is another way of being. Okay. I'll stop right there to see if you have any questions, and then we will continue to work through all of this. This is so important. You must believe this first to deactivate anything. And I must point out that the reason that we're deactivating triggers and reprogramming our mind is so that we can live a healthier and a happier life. This is not about creating peace on the outside. It's about allowing the peace that is within to flow. And triggers don't allow the peace that is within to flow. Now, we learn these concepts, and this is beautiful, but knowledge is never enough. It's going to take practice. It's going to take intention. I would read over my notes daily. You know, as much as we ruminate on problems and play the problems over and over in our head, and the wrongs that were done to us, we replay them for years over and over in our heads. It would be a good thing for us to also replay this new information in our heads. Think about it, read it, speak it. So you truly are reprogramming your mind as we move through these concepts. The other thing you must understand is that your unresolved past determines the intensity of your triggers. Some triggers are positive. They cause excitement and happiness and joy and tears. And we want to keep those usually. But the other triggers, the ones that we're talking about here, are ones that produce experiences that don't serve us, that hinder us, that block us, that sabotage us, that cause us to not have the experiences that we desire. Your unresolved past. Let's talk about what the unresolved past actually is. We already laid the foundation that everything is energy, and we are in a field of energy, and we are a collection of frequencies called human, a localized collection with sentience, right? And every situation around us is energy. Whether we are aware of it or not, it is acting upon our energetic field like a ripple effect. Some things are hitting our field like with a big smash and crash, and some things are just lightly touching it and moving away. However, whatever the impact is, our field is still interacting and is affected. Now, the situations that have a heavy impact on our field will leave an imprint. The imprint begins to vibrate out of harmony with the universe. When you have an imprint that vibrates out of harmony with the universe, it has a certain charge to it. That charge is attracting and repelling what is necessary to resolve it. I always say it's like this. When you have oxygen and hydrogen in a molecule of water, the oxygen needs two hydrogens to be stable because the electrons on the outer shell are not even. So the oxygen needs to draw two hydrogens in order to be stable. That imprint is looking for stability. The imprint requires stability to put you back in harmony with universal truth. And so people and situations that have that like charge will be brought towards you, drawn towards you, if you will, in order to resolve that imprint and bring it back into harmony with universal truth. These are the triggering situations, are drawn to you by your need for resolution. This is a foundational part of the law of reflection. The law of reflection says that every situation we encounter, every person reflects something about us. That's not always easy to see because when we think about reflection, we think that we have to say we're just like the person or just like the action or thought or behavior. A lot of times we're not, but oftentimes we are like that. And we can talk about later why we are unconscious of the ways that we are just like the people and the situations that trigger us. The law of reflection is a universal tool to help us resolve these impressions that are causing discomfort. When you vibrate out of harmony with the universe, you experience the energetic shift. You experience it. You feel it. Those feelings, the thing that you feel, that you perceive, the experiences rather, are called emotions. Some emotions are strong and intense. And the more you attend to them, the more you put your attention on them, the stronger they get, the bigger the impression left, the higher the need for universal truth. I hope this is making sense. So I'll stop right here, see if there are any questions, and I'll continue. So the law of reflection says that every situation, every person, every energy presented to us is reflective of something in us. And that situation, that person, and whatnot are drawn to us to help us resolve the discord that we're living in relation to universal truth. So when we get in harmony with universal truth, we begin to experience ease. We begin to experience peace. We begin to experience whatever it is that we're hoping to experience because we have deactivated the trigger and brought ourselves into harmony with universal truth. So what can these things be reflecting about us? Things, situations, people can be reflecting our patterns, our habitual way of behaving. When A happens, I do B. Likely your rule continues to persist through time. When a person lies to you, you act a certain way. When a person doesn't show up for you, you feel a certain way, then you act a certain way. When a person acts aggressively towards you, you think, feel, act a certain way. And it's usually predictable. The intensity that you feel depends on how many times the thing has been repeated in your past and how much loss was perceived to have happened because of it. The strong emotion that is associated with the particular event or person. In other words, the subconscious was programmed for a rule, a reaction. When A happens, I do B. It's a program. You are a field of energy that can be programmed. So if you want to remove the program, we have to understand what the program actually is. And that is why the feelings come to your awareness through these situations and people, so you can begin to look internally and then apply internally what needs to be applied to bring you into truth. So they're reflecting your patterns, your rules, the way you habitually operate. Your own patterns probably get on your nerves because they feel like you can't control them. It just is what it is. And you, even because you've experienced them so much, you believe that you have a right to feel like that. And you do have a right to feel like that. However, you don't have to feel like that. Now, some people think I'm saying just let things go, let people do whatever they want to do, take away your preferences. That's not what I'm saying at all, because you need to prefer some things over others. You need to not like some things. But what we do needs to shift. The program needs to shift so that when A happens, you no longer do B, maybe you do C, D, and E. Situations, people, and triggering events in general also reflect our potential. They reflect our potential. Sometimes you may see a person getting something or being something that you want, and you may experience envy or jealousy. All right. It's because the law of reflection is showing you the gap between where you are and what you actually want, reflecting potential. These situations can also reflect your propensities, how you are like them. Sometimes we are not acting exactly like the person. Sometimes we're doing the opposite. Let me give you an example. So the hot topic these days is narcissistic behavior. I don't like calling people a narcissist because that's an actual diagnosis. And most people don't even understand what the qualifications for diagnosis is. However, people do display narcissistic traits, tendencies, and behaviors. And usually the person experiencing the narcissistic behavior is not acting like that. They think, I'm not like a narcissist. I'm not acting in controlling ways, not on the surface. But if we look deeper, we'll see that the narcissist and the person who is victimized are actually two sides of the same coin. They're the heads and the tails of the one coin. The person who feels victimized is usually needing to people please. And the narcissist is usually needing to be pleased, you see. So it's not only reflecting patterns, it's also reflecting propensity. And if proclivity, I should say, I said propensity. Proclivity is what I mean, proclivity. So usually if you're people pleasing, you want outcomes. You want the person to accept you or be satisfied with you or act in some kind of way. So you are acting according to your own desires also, just as the narcissist is. The narcissist wants to be pleased. The narcissist wants you to do whatever it is they want you to do. And you want them to stop doing it and act in a different way. Two sides of the same coin, not the exact same behavior, right? But they're complementary. So let me backtrack a little bit. I said propensity, but I meant proclivity. Okay. Or if there's a codependent situation, it's two sides of the same coin. If a person is selfish and you're bending over backwards, giving and giving and giving, well, there's a reason that you're giving and giving and giving. And it's because you want some type of acknowledgement. And usually most people, 99% of people will say, no, I don't give for acknowledgement. I give out the goodness of my heart. Yes, you give out the goodness of your heart. But when your giving begins to drain you because they are not acting a certain way in gratitude or whatever it is, then you have to examine the reasons that you're giving. All right. I'm just laying out the law of reflection right now. I'm not trying to go too far into these situations. I just want to demonstrate or illustrate, rather. I want to illustrate how these reflections happen. All right. And how sometimes we're not doing the exact thing, we're doing the complementary thing. And sometimes you're switching roles as well. One person is demanding, one person is feeling like the victim. Then the person who is doing the demanding, they feel bad for being mean or grumpy. And then they want acceptance. They want to be acknowledged or loved or shown grace or whatever. So these situations are reflections of our patterns, our proclivities, also our potential. It's also showing us, if you want to look at this in a different way, your mirror self, your opposite image, right? Maybe it's something that you need to be doing that you're not doing, that you've never done. For example, in my life, I lived doing things that I didn't want to do because I felt like I needed to. And I felt limited and in bondage by doing that because there was no space for my own desires in my life. I didn't make space. So when I would see the person I was married to being in liberty and doing whatever they wanted without my permission or agreement, I felt triggered. And I would say that that person is inconsiderate and a narcissist and things of that nature. But what I really needed to see was the example. This is the way a person behaves when they are being true to themselves. What you are doing is not being true to yourself. And this is how you feel, and this is how they feel. This is an example of the opposite situation and how you could really choose that also and experience freedom. We all have something called a self-preserving bias. With our self-preserving bias, it's kind of like this. What other people do is bad, but when you do the same thing, it's not that bad. It makes sense to you. So you probably have been in arguments, just immature arguments, and you've said, well, you do A, B, and C, and the person would say, well, you do it too. And you said, no, but I don't do it like that. No, but at least when I did it, I said it. You see, that's the self-preserving bias. We have a need to be seen as better than the people we are judging or blaming or shaming. But remember, the law of reflection tells us this is either a pattern, potential, proclivity, or an example of your mirror self. So anytime you find yourself going, yeah, but I do this, but I don't do it like that. Well, when that energy starts coming up, I want you to name it. My self-preserving bias makes me think that my actions are better because I understand my actions. They feel justified. I'm self-justified. All right. So I'm just laying out some concepts, some foundational concepts that are important as we progress through these teachings. And I want to stop right here to see if you have any questions. All right. So again, super important to remember whatever you're saying your problem is not really what the problem is. So what is the problem? Like, how do we get to the bottom of the problem? How do we understand what's really going on in the undercurrent? Because we have a desire to move from just superficial, contracted ways of being into expanded awareness so that we can have better experiences. What the real problem lies in what we want from the situation, what we want that we're not getting. The real problem is factored into the what we want, but we're not getting. So the next question is, well, what do we want? What do we want? We want things like respect, honor, loyalty, truthfulness, openness, forgiveness, grace. And we could go on and on and on. You could probably name some. In fact, if you're taking notes, name some things that you want from people. This is an intangible want, acknowledgement, etc. You're wanting this and not getting it. You're wanting it and not getting it. You see this as the answer to some unresolved issue. If people could just be more honest, then I could be more open. If people would just be more loyal, then I could XYZ. Or if you don't say people, this person. If this person would just be more forgiving, then I could have the space I need. You want these intangible things. This is so important. You're wanting it and not getting it. This is at the core of the problem. We're getting a little bit deeper than just the thing that happened. The person raised their voice, that happened and you didn't like it, but that's not the real problem. When the person raised their voice, you want it to be respected. You wanted respect and you were not getting it. You wanted to feel safe and you were not getting it. You wanted something from the outside that you were not getting. And these wants are usually intense needs, actually. They're intense needs. And the reason that they're so intense is because you have had several situations in your life where you went without this intangible or several intangibles. Maybe you grew up in a household where people lied a lot. So truth, you went without truth a lot, and maybe that made you feel unsure or unstable or put you in situations where you felt caught off guard and not prepared, right? So the things that you want are likely things you have always wanted in your life but didn't get. And the buildup of impressions in your soul is deep and intense. The vibration away from harmony with universal truth is huge. The differential between where you are in that particular part of yourself and universal truth is just huge. And you experience it as deep emotional intensity. You think that it's because the person didn't show you respect or the person didn't create safety, but it's really all the people who didn't do it. This person is here being their human self, and you are experiencing all of your past situations, all of your past impressions vibrating at the same time in discord to universal truth. And it hurts. It's painful. It's an awful experience. This person in front of you with the presenting problem is now getting the actions, reactions, and thoughts of all the people who have done this. And the same thing is happening inside of them. So at that point, we're really not even interacting with the actual person. They're not interacting with you. They're interacting with your buildup of impressions that are vibrating out of harmony with the universe. They're interacting with your pain body. They're interacting with the activation of your belief systems, your programs, all at once. This is why arguments don't work. This is why people usually say cooler heads prevail, because when your belief systems are activated, your emotional triggers are activated, and it's deep and intense. Remember, I told you that this state of being is not going to submit to logic. You have to come out of it in a systematic way. It's your primal brain. You are in flight or fight response. The things that you want have come from almost a lifetime of not getting those things. This is what I'm calling your unresolved past. That's what we're going to look in during our next session, how to begin to resolve the unresolved past. But it was important for me to set this foundation. I need you to read over it and study it, not memorize it, just study it for understanding, for processing. Because as we move into the actual strategy of deactivating the trigger, you're going to need a leg to stand on. You're going to need something to believe in place of your previous beliefs. You used to believe that the presenting situation was the real problem. You used to believe that. That's why you stayed on the level of the problem, fussing about it. And that's why lots of things never went resolved. But now you are moving into understanding that the presenting situation is not the problem. So you're no longer going to stay on that contracted awareness. Up until now, you believe that your contracted awareness is where the answers could come from. You believe that, and the proof is that you would argue with a person, yell and scream, or shut all the way down and fold inward. You used to believe that. But now you understand that if any answers are ever going to be had, it's going to be done in expansion. Expansion doesn't mean you're happy and you're at peace and you're zen. Expansion means you know how to bring yourself into a state of being of openness to your true vibration, even though the thing around you is going on. Up until now, you thought that the reason you got so upset was because the person didn't do what you felt they should do, or they did something that you didn't like. But as of tonight, you are understanding that the reason you felt how you felt was because you wanted something that you weren't getting. Now, sometimes for some people, that's a tough pill to swallow because it sounds kind of immature, but it's true. We want something, we don't get it, we feel upset. This is just how it is. And I would like to give you permission to take up space in your own mind, to admit that you wanted some stuff that you just didn't get, and you were acting to get the thing, but your actions didn't bring about the outcomes that you wanted. Your actions didn't bring about the experiences that you wanted. So important. Now you understand that it's what you wanted and didn't get that was the next step into the problem. And when you step down even further, you see that your wants have come from a buildup of time, a lifetime of not getting that particular intangible that you need to bring you into harmony with universal truth. It feels like frustration. It feels like aggravation, agitation. The list goes on and on. So now you can ask yourself in every situation until we meet again, what intangible do I want? And can I pinpoint parts of my life where I didn't get that and really needed it? Where having that intangible would have made a difference in your life? Where maybe having that intangible would have resulted in some things not happening or some other things happening. You see, the intensity of your emotion as a result of the trigger is because you've had some pretty significant events going on where you did not receive that intangible, and you have an impression, a part of yourself that is still not vibrating according to truth. During our next session, we will move into how to actually move through the past situation in order to bring it into resolution. For now, I need you to practice these concepts. I need you to remember the law of reflection. Anytime something is getting on your nerves, something is bothering you, a person agitates you, you can ask yourself, because up until now, you thought it was just them and just how they are, and you don't tolerate that, you don't like it. But now you understand that it's reflecting something about you. Patterns that you continue to enact that will bring forth experiences that you don't want. For example, I can remember a time where I continued to attract people who had huge emotional needs that I was not willing to meet. After a while, instead of saying they're clingy, they're this, they're that, I had to ask myself, what is this pattern and what in me co-creates this with them? So if you had asked me some years ago about this, I would have said, I don't co-create that with them. It's not my fault that they come wanting XYZ. I'm clear with them. But they can't come unless they're reflecting something. And it definitely was a pattern, right? They also reflect your potential. Maybe it's something that you want and you're becoming painfully aware that where you are and where you want to be is a big difference. So then we don't have to look at them and create reasons that you're upset, because now you understand what the real problem is. And also they are reflecting something that you need to shift within yourself. And you may feel resentful that they're actually doing it and you're not. For example, with people who are givers, there's inevitably a person who receives. And if a person is giving very often, then the person who's receiving is receiving very often. After a while, the giver may start getting upset and say that all the person does is take. The giver is usually a person who has trouble receiving and feels resentful that this person is so comfortable receiving and not giving to a similar standard. Just setting the foundation. We're not going too deep in this. I just need you to see how these things are reflecting parts of you that you don't see. And sometimes, you'll say, well, I don't think I'm like that. I don't think it's this. I don't see that. Of course you don't, because it's unconscious. It's unconscious. But when you begin to open your consciousness to it, then you begin to see in deeper ways that the situation is really reflecting a lot about you. And most of the time, it's reflecting all of these, the pattern, the potential, the proclivity, and the mirror self. Usually it's reflecting all of it. And The first step into increasing your awareness is understand that this is even going on, and then open yourself to it. Begin to look at situations. How were my proclivities the same? How was I like this too? Either in my past or in this situation. Sometimes it's easy to look in the past and be like, oh yeah, I used to do that. But truth is, you're most likely doing it also in the present, just in a different way. And you're not aware. But people are constantly telling you, giving you clues, thoughts, and messages about your unconscious, but you deny it because you, up until now, you have been thinking that they're the problem and blaming them. But people have been giving you clues about your unconscious behavior and belief systems. Listen to what people have to say. I'm not saying you need to accept it, but listening and having a look at it and asking yourself, is this a pattern? Am I like this? Can I see how I have done that? Can I see how they could see it that way? Is there something about this I've never seen in myself before? It's like looking in the mirror and not knowing that your hair is all over the place. You think your hair is fine, but you look in the mirror like, oh my God, what is my hair doing? The same way, these people are your reflection. And remember that you're going to always start off thinking that what you've done isn't as bad, isn't as serious, isn't as crucial. Well, yeah, I lied, but I didn't lie about having surgery. It's the same energy. But your self-preserving bias will tell you that lying about where you've been is different than lying about having surgery. And part of you may even want to argue about that right now or rebuttal. But if we are to get into our true awareness, our expanded awareness, and really deactivate these triggers, then we can't let any of this stay. It all must go because it's all part of the same program that has kept you operating in the same way for years, over and over again. It's time to step into our power seat. It's time for us to understand what our true power is and begin to create these experiences that are in our power to create rather than having life act upon us. There's some things we can't control, but there's a lot we can alter. There's a lot we can shift. There's a lot that we can clear. There's a lot that we can deactivate. And I'll put a pin right here, marking the end of this session. I'd like to stop to see if you have any questions before I close out. I'd like to end this call the same way that I began the call. Bring to mind the things that really get under your skin, the people who really get under your skin. I mean, they get under your skin in a deep way. The situation bothers you in a deep way every time. Ask yourself, what intangible do I want that I've likely not had my whole life? What intangible? Forgiveness, acceptance, comfort, nurturing, the intangibles. Write it down. So important. Another question, what is this person or situation reflecting about me? My patterns of how I go into victim mode, or maybe how victim mode is the opposite of the one perpetuating the offense. Is it showing my proclivity? Is it showing an example of how I could be experiencing things? Is it reflecting my potential? What is it reflecting? Just in doing these simple things, you are increasing your awareness. It's causing you to expand away from the stories you've been telling. Every relationship that hasn't gone well, every situation that you have gone through with intense pain, has been, is what do I want to say? It's not, this has been as a result. No, has hinged on a lack of understanding. And to come out of that way of being into a more enjoyable experience, or at least one where you have greater peace, because some things you're just not going to enjoy and you don't need to, because it's there to bring you into a higher elevation. So, but even in it, even in everything that's going on, you can have greater peace if you come into understanding the things that I presented tonight. That's what I want to say. So that is it. That is it. If you're listening to the replay, please do make sure you do the self-reflective activity. If you choose not to come to an additional session, my hope is that what you have gleaned tonight will assist you further. If you want one-on-one coaching to work through some of this stuff, because it's good information, but working through it systematically can be a lot easier with assistance. I'm here for it. I offer one-on-one coaching. You can find all of the details there at veronicamarie.com. And that is it. So let's breathe and bring ourselves into our bodies. Bring our awareness into the body and away from the information. We trust that this information is settling in our souls. Right now, we put our minds on our scalp. We put our minds now on our brow. We release any tension from the scalp and the brow. We release tension intentionally from our eyelids, our nostrils relax, our jawline relaxes. We drop the tongue from the top of the mouth. Our shoulders are relaxed down and away from the ears. Our chest, we breathe into it and allow open space to happen. We relax our abdominal muscles, our hips, our thighs. Our knees fall to the side slightly. We relax our calves and ankles, even our toes and our feet, and we sit comfortably in a relaxed state in our bodies, feeling what it feels like to be us. And we give thanks. We give thanks for bodies that heal, bodies that move, bodies that function well. We give thanks right now that we are able to shift in our consciousness to become better, stronger, wiser, deeper. We give thanks right now that there is the availability of information to us, opportunities to easily move into the next version of ourselves. We give thanks for the space we're in right now. It's an honor. It's a privilege to be counted amongst the ones doing the work. We don't take that for granted. And so now we speak peace into our bodies. Bodies be at peace. We speak peace into our minds. Minds be at peace. We speak peace into our hearts. Hearts be at peace. As we take a deep breath in through the nostrils and out through the mouth, as deep as you want it to be, and you find that you agree with the intention we just set, say it is so in the spirit of your mind or out loud to yourself. It is so, it is so, and it is so. It's been my pleasure to be with you tonight. Have a beautiful night, and I will talk to you next Sunday at the same time.